All right, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, I am here recapping the most obviously prestigious film festival in the entire world. Not Cannes, not the New York Film Festival, but the Virginia Film Festival. And I am here with fellow UVA students or alumni that came, watched the film festival, and saw a great amount of pictures. And we're here to talk about it today in a more free-flowing and informal format than many of my other videos. So we're just going to go around, and we're going to first off just introduce at least your names, and then talk about probably your favorite film at the festival. That's a good place to start out. And then we will go for there. So, Sophia, we can start with you.
Yeah, I'm Sophia. I could not tell you my favorite film to save my life at all, but I really, really thoroughly enjoyed The Harder They Fall and Spencer. I feel those two really stuck out to me.
Yeah, I'm Cameron. I really enjoyed seeing Power of the Dog and Parallel Mothers.
Yeah, I'm Varun. I think favorite movie was probably Last Night in Soho. Yeah, I think that was just a highlight for me.
I'm Matt. I didn't see anything because I fucking wasn't in Charlottesville.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
So I, of course, am the usual Nick from Lightspeed Brothers, and my favorite film was Memoria. But that was me, but I also heard someone literally come out of the theater and say, I want my 2.5 hours back, so that may be an unfortunate film to pick for the favorite, but I think Last Night in Soho most of us did see, so I think we'll start by talking about that and just go for there, and everyone just be loud and make sure we can hear you in the mic, but I think everything is showing up okay. But if anyone wants to start talking about Last Night in Soho, what they liked or did not like, we can go from there.
It was a ride. I think that's just the very first thing you have to say. It was a ride and a half. Like, I understand that Edgar Wright, he does what he did, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead. This was not any of those films. It was very aesthetically pleasing to watch and also disturbing as well. And I think he did a lot of cool commentaries on sort of women in big cities and their own ambitions and how they're kind of taken advantage of in certain situations. And I personally could really relate to Ellie, who's the little protagonist. She's very cute and innocent and like big little fish in a big pond of London, and I could really resonate with like her homesickness and the whole mental illness sort of thing was also, I was writing on that too. That was a whole lot. I was just kind of blabbering.
No, I mean, I think you bring up a lot of good points. But interestingly, a lot of the points you bring up were kind of some of my biggest gripes. I feel like I enjoyed Last Night in Soho, but I think my problem was it tried to juggle too much. I think it was very aesthetically pleasing. I think that the cinematography was exciting. Well, not necessarily exciting, but I think it was the body swapping in the cinematography that was exciting for me. I did enjoy it, though. I think the third act is a little flimsy, but
Yeah, I do have comments on the ending. I feel like the beat that it hit on, it was just too, like, and everything's okay now. Like, I am so happy for her. She got to do her dream, and she was, spoiler alert, but she was, getting her stuff there on the runway, and she was safe, her family was safe, the guy was safe, but it was just like, all right, well, after that traumatic experience, everything is right in the world. So I thought it was a little bit too much of a shoo-in.
Yeah, I think it was like, I was kind of shocked that her boyfriend at the end, I thought he actually died completely.
Right?
And I was a little surprised he still came to life. So, yeah.
One thing that's interesting as somebody who hasn't seen this movie is that if I am remembering correctly, this is Edgar Wright's first film with a female protagonist. Period. If you think back, like Baby Driver, right, World's End, as you already mentioned, Hot Fuzz, like a lot of these movies, Scott Pilgrim, right, all revolve around these male protagonists. So it's interesting to see like what it does when you kind of shift that and take that different perspective. So I'm curious, how do you guys think that like played into what the movie is?
This is where I will jump in. Poorly. I did not like it. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which means I thought it was average. I think that Edgar Wright was honestly one of the worst people that I would have selected to pick this film. I think that someone like Olivia Wilde would have been really interesting to see in this, not only just for the female perspective, but she also knows how to do genre while also making a statement. And I felt that there was one review on Letterboxd that said Edgar Wright goes woke, and I thought, like, that is an accurate statement, but is Edgar Wright the right person to do that? Because his films are so boisterous and fun and energetic, and I felt that the film at its best were those moments with Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie dancing around, and the visual tricks that he did there. And when he was trying to do the social commentary, it was very much Edgar Wright struggling to restrain his own style and kind of working against himself in trying to deliver a rather tepid social commentary. I felt like, I think comparisons could be made to Promising Young Woman because it was a lot like that in talking about issues of consent. But I think at least with Promising Young Woman, although there are plenty of complaints to be had about that film, that at least that film was audacious. Even though it was incendiary, I think most people would agree that it had a bold voice, even if it wasn't the right one to make. Whereas Last Night in Soho, I just felt like everything was predictable with it. I felt like by the end, I saw exactly what was coming. And I think that could go for the horror as well, which I'd also like to get into the elements, because I saw this really interesting review on Letterboxd by a user named Rafi Crispin, who was talking about how the film wasn't particularly scary, but it didn't matter because Giallo wasn't scary. And I thought that to be a rather interesting point, but my problem with it is that Edgar Wright spends so much time building up suspense, building up these jump scares, that the expectation that it has to be scary was set out by him. If you didn't have an expectation for it to be scary, then I would be fine. But because there was such a heavy expectation to have these scares be effective, I thought as a horror movie and as a social commentary piece as a whole, it was more or less a failure. So if anyone else would like to bounce off that, please.
So I'd say like sorry, one thing I remember like learning about like my horror film class was like the red herring character. So it's like the character where kind of makes you think it's like somebody else, but really they're not even the main suspect. It's somebody completely different. So I was thinking, like, I did see that element with, I guess, the older man. I forgot his name, but like the old man who ends up actually dying.
Jack.
Jack, yes. So I think he was more of a red herring character.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit on it with Giallo isn't supposed to be scary, and I think that might be where it went wrong. It tried to be scary, but it also tried to be Giallo. And I think, there's room for those two brands to be infused, but also if you're trying to give your due respect to the Giallo style of filmmaking, it's not necessarily scary. It's kind of cheap horror, it's... I will say, I actually went into the film, I had heard that it was, like, kind of scary, but the positioning I had seen, I forget who, I think it was IndieWire, who, whatever you say about them, but they positioned it not as scary as A Quiet Place, but scarier than Sixth Sense.
Which
I
would actually disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think it was less scary than Sixth Sense.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think it's interesting, though, because I also, while I was sitting waiting for Memoria to start, I heard one of the critics, she was like, I was just so terrified, and, I was like, I think it's just a matter of taste,
Yeah, fear's kind of a subjective thing. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of, like, horror films, but I do love a good thriller, suspense kind of movie. And I feel, at least for me, Last Night in Soho, it was a good balance of, like, suspense and thrill that I personally could tolerate. I understand, like, from a horror point, this was not scary. It was disturbing in some ways, like those freaking manifestations of the men that, assaulted Anya Taylor's character. They were creepy. Look, I'm not gonna lie. Those things, if I saw them, I would pee myself. But I totally get what you guys are saying by the fact that it's just not. It tried to be horror, but it just didn't like have that horror punch, I guess.
Yeah, and I think with regards to the men, and I'm glad you brought up that it's satisfactory from the thriller's perspective because it is kind of a light film, and I would appreciate that aspect of it. I actually saw people complain about how bad the CGI was. I was never off-put by it in a way where like the mountains and like Black Panther was like really like, oh my god, like what is that? That's horrible CGI. But I will say that like what you reminded me of was the one scene where she's seeing those men and she almost stabs her roommate in the eye.
Oh my gosh.
And
Oh,
I think
feel like-
one of the big problems with Edgar Wright, which has particularly been brought up with Baby Driver, is that he is a director with a lack of consequences. If you've seen Shaun of the Dead, his best friend's turned into a zombie, and then he's not. If you've seen The World's End, everything's about to go to shit, people are dying, people are turned into aliens, and then they're not. They're really okay. Baby Driver, people were giving it 5 out of 5s after 5 out of 5s. However, the big problem with that film that pretty much everyone universally agrees upon is that the ending is completely wrong and forced. That the rainbow and him walking out was one of the dumbest decisions Wright could have made, and he still could have provided a sequel without that ending. And in this, you have her literally almost kill a person, and yet totally walk away from it. And I just felt like, again, that he is a very... He just never nails that balance between actually having stakes in this film. And I don't feel as though that anyone was particularly threatened throughout. And that's just my take on it. I also feel as though the roommate, it was, again, like that stereotypical juxtaposition of a very safe roommate who doesn't want to drink, and then the partier, which I think has been done 100 times beforehand. I wouldn't say... A lot of people I saw... were commenting on how horrible the script was. I don't know if it was horrible, but I do feel as though the dialogue and the characterization was pretty generic, and I had seen a lot of it beforehand.
Yeah. Okay. I just like as a woman, I have feelings about the kind of like stereotypical characters that are being portrayed, especially when it comes to the roommate. Oh my gosh, like I hate those mean girls like that. When her character came in, I was just like, oh my god, here we go again with the stereotypical mean girl who's like gonna destroy this person's life even though she does not know them. Like, I mean, I know it does happen, but I don't think it happens as much as media portrays, that women just like attack each other because they feel threatened. If that happens, it's more like subtle or passive aggressive rather than I'm going to spike your drink or I'm going to try and, make your life miserable in college even though you're just this cute little country girl and a freshman. Like, I really dislike seeing that stereotype, outside of like Mean Girls, which is, I guess, necessary. But, yeah, I just... that kind of
and even then, Mean Girls humanizes the Mean Girls themselves more than this film does.
Right, and with your saying the no consequences point of thing, like Ellie's character clearly has some severe mental illness that you can tell from her mom, who died because of a terrible mental illness leading to suicide. The fact that she doesn't get help for it, she doesn't get mental health help, and the fact that she almost killed somebody, and the fact that the whole fire thing, like, it just, you're right, there's no consequences for her or help.
See, I agree 100% with the no consequences thing. It was interesting to me because I think that was part of the sloppiness that I found in that third act. It's this, he's got he's juggling all these themes, and he kind of sloppily writes it off as she gets a free pass because mental health, and she was dealing with some stuff, and I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I agree, but also she did just try and stab someone. Like, she would have done it too had her hand not been caught. And again, it just felt like a very stereotyped depiction.
It's a man writing a woman's role.
Yeah, I mean,
Hate
though
to
he
say
did
it,
he did have a co-write, a female co-writer.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But yeah,
but it's just...
absolutely. It was very clear which scenes were written by Edgar Wright and which were not.
Yeah, I would say I might have almost screamed when the knife almost hit the roommate. So yeah.
All right. If anyone has anything else to say on Last Night in Soho, I think we covered that. I'm just going to check the audio and make sure that it is reasonable, and then we will talk about our next film. All right. The audio does in fact work, which was a relief. And now we're going to be talking about essentially the biggest film of the festival because it was the opening. We talked with Last Night in Soho, which was also hotly anticipated. And now we're talking about the French Dispatch. So I'll start off this time because Last Night in Soho and French Dispatch, I think, are both on the lower ends of each director's filmography. Last Night in Soho I found to be Edgar Wright's worst by a significant margin. French Dispatch, I think it's a lower form of Wes. I didn't say it was bad. In fact, I liked the film. I gave it 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which is anything 3 or above. I liked. But I do think that the main thing for me is that, yes, this world is beautiful and it's so immersive in the way Wes designs it. But I think that a lot of people don't give Wes enough credit in terms of narrative storytelling, how melancholic his films are, how much dramedy aspects they have in them. And I think that all of those aspects made for me stuff like Royal Tenenbaums and Fantastic Mr. Fox and even Steve's Zoo, really interesting pictures that were beyond just the worlds he created. And this one kind of felt like it was lacking that, but I'll leave it off to you guys to see what your thoughts on it were.
I mean, honestly, I'm a weird Wes Anderson fan because I feel like this kind of fell in the middle for me. It wasn't my least favorite of his.
What is your least favorite? I'm interested.
Steve Zissou.
Mm.
I don't know why. I saw that and it was just not what I was expecting, and I just wasn't crazy about it. But yeah, no. I just think it was kind of all over the place, and I liked the little vignettes, and I think they were still very much the why did I just blank? What's the director's name? Why did I just blank? Wes Anderson. It was very much the Wes Anderson style, but it. I heard one critic say it felt like he was bored. He got creative freedom and just kind of was like, all right, I'm gonna do what I normally do because that's what people expect.
I'm going to do literally whatever the fuck I want with visuals. And that was kind of the movie, because my review literally starts off with Wes at his most free.
Yeah.
But what does that, is that even a good thing to begin with? Does stop motion kind of hone in some of his storytelling and force him to do its stuff in a certain way? I don't know, but I feel like that's a question that could be asked, because for me, this doing whatever the hell he wanted just wasn't the solution for me.
Yeah, I think for me, this was probably the most, for me, anticipated movie I wanted to see this year. I didn't really like it as much as the other films that he's done. I think, I don't know, I feel like there's too many characters, and I know that's a Wes Anderson movie, he always has a lot of characters, but something about it felt like there's too many where I couldn't really focus on all the different parts of the plot, because I was just thinking more about the characters. But I don't know, but I did think it was cool how he would switch from black and white to color throughout the piece.
Animation as
well.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the difference that you're bringing up here is that Wes Anderson, his films, while they might normally have a lot of characters, they're all part of one story, and you can kind of have them build throughout the entire hour and a half, 2 hour runtime. This one, you get 20 minutes with each character pretty much, or 20 minutes with each set of characters, with a little bit more given to the journalists, who are writing the pieces that the film is centered around. But I think it worked in a disservice to the film.
Matt, I know you didn't see anything, but any comments on Wes or his films in general?
Yeah, I'm very curious about what you guys thought compared to Moonrise Kingdom or to Grand Budapest Hotel, because I probably liked Grand Budapest especially, and even looking at his animated stuff, Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs even, I really enjoyed those movies as well. But yeah, I am curious where all of those kind of rank for you, honestly. I'm curious where all of this kind of plays out, because saying that it's middle of the pack doesn't tell me everything if I don't know what the top and bottom of that grouping is.
Yeah, I mean, that's very fair. For me, I'm tired. Forewarning, I'm tired and am blanking on every single Wes Anderson movie.
I can start. I can do roughly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I said it was roughly near the bottom. So I would say top tier, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Royal Tenenbaums. I'll put Moonrise Kingdom, and maybe right below it Grand Budapest. Those are, for me, the top tier Wes Anderson. I really like Isle of Dogs. Then we'll go a considerable step down, and this is on the level of Steve's Zoo, Darjeeling Unlimited, Bottle Rocket, French Dispatch. I think so. Again, is it definitively his worst? I don't know. Oh, I forgot Rushmore. Rushmore would be closer to the top. It would be kind of below the top tier with Grand Budapest, because I really like Rushmore. So yeah, it was, again, I think every single one of his films are good. I think that this is one of his worst, and it's kind of I don't know, is it definitively Wes Anderson's worst picture? No, but I think there's an interesting point to be made that this probably has the weakest characterization out of any of his films.
Yeah, I mean, now that I've gotten myself together here a bit, I'd say, yeah, Rushmore, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Grand Budapest, Royal Tenenbaums, Bottle Rocket, Moonrise Kingdom, Isle of Dogs, French Dispatch. Or, well, actually, now that I say it out loud, actually, I'd put it above Bottle Rocket, probably.
I think that's what most people are doing. A lot of people are doing with Bottle Rocket, but everyone has to keep in mind that was Wes's debut. And so he really didn't establish what made his films tick at that point.
Yeah.
And so there's less of an excuse for this film to be as poor or really just lacking the greatness of that one.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if he did like one of his shorts that he does, like connected to French Dispatch. I think he's done one for like Darjeeling Unlimited. I think he did like a commercial with like the Grand Budapest Hotel. So I'd be curious to see if he does like one of his like really short stuff with like French Dispatch.
He did one for Moonrise Kingdom as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, this is like kind of the most interesting, I feel, part of the discussion, is people were talking about like where does Wes go after this, because a lot of people end up being underwhelmed. And something like, this is kind of, for me, Wes's Tenet. This is something where it's one of his weakest, not something I particularly dislike, but was disappointed in and want to see the director move beyond his tendencies and try something else. Like Nolan is doing Oppenheimer now, which obviously isn't going to be the grand sci-fi spectacle that is. I see Cameron is wincing, but we'll get to your perspective on that. It isn't his usual stuff. Is it probably just going to be more of a generic drama that is maybe Oscar bait for Nolan? I don't know, probably. But I'm interested to see where he goes with that, and I'd like to see Wes honestly do something, I don't know, maybe not totally removed from his, color palettes and wonderful worlds, but something maybe a little more dramatic. Cameron?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, on the topic of Oppenheimer, it is absolutely Oscar bait, particularly with Matt Damon and Robert Downey Jr. Just being added. It's, Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt.
I will defend Nolan. I will say this, that I will defend Nolan because Dark Knight is, of course, one of the most atrocious Oscar grabs in history. And this is what usually happens. A director comes in, makes something very in their realm, like Scorsese did with The Departed. And then Irishman, you could argue. And even Guillermo del Toro, who was robbed in 2006 with Pan's Labyrinth, and then made something very in his zone for Shape of Water that, of course, appealed more to the Oscar sensibilities. And so I will defend Nolan on that front, but you can continue. I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah. No, I mean, as far... You mentioned, it's curious as to where Wes Anderson will go next. And, I mean, he's already in production on his next movie, and rumored to be titled Asteroid City. And I think... I'm excited because from the general, stuff I'm hearing about it, it's going to be a more straightforward narrative. I am a little nervous that it's just going to be a star vehicle because he keeps adding people. It's all his normal people, Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, Adrian Brody, etc.
Owen Wilson.
And Tom Hanks
Yeah,
is...
but now he's adding Margot Robbie,
Oh my
Tom
God.
Hanks, Scarlett
Jesus.
Johansson.
Jeez, come on,
It
Wes.
is Bryan Cranston.
Oh, hell yeah.
But
But see, why are people so inclined to work with him? Because Indian Paintbrush is in large part financing his films, and you know that a lot of these actors are going to be taking pay cuts in order to work with him. And so what is so appealing and enticing about him that people work? I mean, they just must hear that it's the most
I
fun
think it's
experience.
the precision of his craft, right? Like, if you've watched any of the behind the scenes, especially Grand Budapest, right? Like, the precision and, the way that he directs every single camera movement, every single second of where an actor is on screen, or, what is going on in the background of a shot, right? Like, nothing's out of place. And I don't think that exists on every set, right? Like, sometimes a lot of sets, everything's going to shit all at once, right? And things are changing and everything's chaos. And yet, on these Wes Anderson sets, somehow everything is exactly where it needs to be all the time. And I think that's just a really cool place to be, right? Like, an actor's willing to take less money if they get this kind of controlled environment with a lot of other really well-known actors, right? So...
Yeah, it is absolutely that, and it's a star vehicle. I mean, everyone's doing it. Jump on the bandwagon. You know, it's one of the most. I mean, as you said, Nick, there is not necessarily a bad or poorly regarded Wes Anderson film. So I think it's like, you know, particularly Scarlett Johansson right now needs some good word of mouth. You know, I feel like Margot Robbie, the past few films that she's been in, haven't done particularly well at the box office, so she needs something, you know, here. Bryan Cranston, he's been landing a lot of smaller roles since, you know, Breaking Bad ended. You know, he had Godzilla, but then died in the first 20 minutes. But yeah, I mean, you know.
Truly an auteur's film, Godzilla.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, and then the atrocious remake of, I don't remember the French name for it, but it's called The Upside. It's a remake of a French film.
Oh, The Untouchables. The
The
Untouchables, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
was
Jesus Christ, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's, like, looking at this, and even Tom Hanks, I mean, even though News of the World got Oscar buzz and a few nominations, it sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like these are actors who are declining and are looking for a place to, like, rebuild themselves.
I'll say one more comment about this, and then I'll cut it off, and then we'll talk about a film that someone actually liked or effusively liked. But, Matt, you were talking about, like, people just taking pay cuts. It just reminded me of, like, the stories of people going to the Patriots and taking pay cuts to work with Bill Belichick. It's just that they want to be in... I didn't even see that you were wearing that.
I'm wearing a New England Patriots shirt right now.
Wow, yeah. But... like, people just want to be in the presence of such brilliance.
They want to be with a winner, right? And in Hollywood, Wes Anderson is absolutely a winner when it comes to critical acclaim and buzz and anything. People will sit in seats and watch that movie no matter how shit it is because they want to see, if it's a dumpster fire, they want to see a Wes Anderson dumpster fire. Right?
That's true. Yeah. All right, well, now we're going to be on to our next film.
Well,
okay, people have chosen Spencer. We are now going to be talking about Spencer and how much everyone loves Spencer, and talk about something more positive. So please, if anyone would like to join in and talk about why they particularly like this, and if you thought it was one of the best of the festival.
I guess I'll start because I didn't really say much last time. But I deeply enjoyed Spencer, even though it was so disturbing and heartbreaking and oh my goodness, like my heart. Diana was just so unhappy. She didn't deserve any of that. But let's just all take a moment for Kristen Stewart. I mean, oh my God. People were giving her buzz about this movie, and I believe it is deserved. I don't care what anybody says. I think Kristen Stewart did amazingly. The accent was pretty spot on. There were few, if any, noticeable mistakes or kind of inconsistencies, that was what I was nervous about, because Americans kind of have a weird relationship with British accents, and while British people can do crazy American accents for some reason, sometimes Benedict Cumberbatch in the first Doctor Strange movie was a little bit weird, but anyway, that's a different movie. But I just feel it took whether whatever was truth or whatever was, theatric, I think you could really get a sense of how deeply unhappy Princess Diana was in a situation in which many, many people would have loved to be in, but they don't know the realities of the society, and I think it really does a good job at capturing that and showing how deeply affected she was by it.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I probably would not... Spencer is not my type of movie. I don't care about the royal family. Not in a bad way, but it's just some people obsess over them. And Spencer, did the impossible. It made me care. Obviously it didn't make me care about the royal family, but I was invested in Kristen Stewart's portrayal of Princess Diana. I was fully engaged throughout the entire film. Johnny Greenwood's score was possibly my favorite of the year, though I am a sucker for jazz, and it had some jazz influences there. Um, I really enjoyed the pastels. Like it's got this kind of pastel color palette, but it makes the grays more gray and the colors pop a lot more. Um, I mean, yeah, I could go on forever with praise for this movie because it really, just for reference, the person sitting in front of me was tall, and I spent half of the movie leaning out into the aisle, and I still love this film. But yeah, that's all. I'll cut myself off there.
Yeah, I also saw this movie because it was shot 16 millimeter film, so I was really interested in seeing how that would look. It was beautiful, shot, cinematography was amazing.
I have a question real quick. I'm curious of those of you guys who saw it, how much this felt visually like Jackie, because it has the same director, and also kind of a similar premise when you break down it being this political powerhouse family, right? So I'm curious about that and what kind of you were picking up visually, cue-wise, that was similar.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with you. I did not catch Jackie. As I said, this film is not really my genre. And quite frankly, it's not targeted at my demographic. Well, I guess it is technically. It's targeted at cinephiles.
I would concur that Spencer is definitely something that's just the cinephile branch of suppression and being and conforming.
Oh yeah. No, but I was able to look at the audience and pick out the demographics it targeted, just because. Yeah, and I won't get into that, but it was very stark and clear. But yeah, no, I haven't seen Jackie.
Anyone has seen Jackie?
No?
Sorry.
We cannot speak to the
That's too bad.
visual similarities.
That's too bad.
I'll ask one question, and then I'll ask another. So if one person could just answer this, and I guess a kind of brief fashion. I watched the trailer for this, and I think that a lot of people will actually be turned off by the trailer because I think it showcases the film in a much more didactic light than it probably is, because it's just about usual, the standards of the royal family are so crippling, and The Crown does a lot of things to show that no member of the royal family is really that enjoying of the life, that everyone kind of has to live two lives at once, and no one's really as simple as, you must conform to the great standards of our family. Everyone's kind of miserable in their own way. And so I just want to say, do you think that this film did capture the complexity that the trailer kind of failed to, that it was trying to get at, that multiple people are affected by this, and it's not just one singular persona that is so bogged down by the way they run their family?
I would say so. Even though I am not fond of how things are run by the royal family, you see that it's not just Diana who's suffering here. Her kids are watching their mother spiral into eating disorders, into paranoia, into depression, and that's traumatizing. And even Princess Diana's husband, who the name leaves me at the moment. Charles, sure, whatever. They're all creepy men. But he's dealing with marital issues that are his fault, but whatever. And you even get the staff who work for them. I think Maggie was her name, Diana's dresser. She's affected by this. The cooks are affected by this. It's this network of everybody is impacted by the tradition of the royal family, and for whatever reason they want to maintain that tradition. That's where it kind of that complexity comes in. It's not just the heads of this monarchy. It influences everybody. It seeps into everything.
See, I would kind of slightly disagree with you. I think it's tackled, but kind of on a one-noted basis. I feel like Prince Charles had one scene where he's you have to have two of yourself. One where it's, who you show to the public, and one who your true self. And, I was like, okay, yeah, and, I feel like that's everyone, even, not the royal family. And then, I was like, that's the definition of professionalism. And then Queen Elizabeth, she's got like a couple lines where it's like, your currency. And I'm like, she's like, we're all currency.
Ah, jeez, I probably would hate that.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I probably won't hate it, and I haven't seen it, but I did get a sense from the trailer that it was a series of platitudes already kind of espoused about the royals, and I don't know if I don't know. I just don't think, at this point, we're getting such rich collections of Best Picture contenders. I think the past couple of years have had such strong collections of movies. I mean, in 2019, I thought, 7 out of the 9 of them, I was like, wow, not just these are good movies, these are great freaking movies. I think besides Joker, which I was and Jojo Rabbit, which I also thought was kind of I liked all of them. And I think that, I hope that the Oscar... this year is able to reflect the growing quality of kind of art house movies that are being accepted by the Academy, and I don't know if this is the perfect representation of that. But I would like to move on and talk about, because the film festivals as a whole are a gateway kind of to Oscar nominations and such, and I would love to hear just general thoughts on something like this and Belfast, which is the stereotypical Best Picture kind of movie, something versus Power of the Dog, which is going to go to streaming and Netflix, and is most likely going to compete for Best Picture, and is also a definitively more artsy director with Jane, is her last name Campion, and who is known for her more art house sensibilities. And I would like to hear any comparisons, or what do you think the trend is going to be in that direction? We'll start with Varun.
You might need to come back.
Okay.
I actually have to bounce. I only saw Power of the Dog, but...
No problem.
all right, I've got lots of thoughts.
Sophia, thank you so much for joining us.
Problem.
Yeah. All right, yeah, I've got lots of thoughts. I see why Belfast is currently the front runner for Best Picture. I don't agree. I think it's very much playing to Oscar voters. It's black and white. It's a coming-of-age story surrounding a historical event, and a family in it. And
is it about fascism? They typically
no,
love...
it's about the Troubles in Belfast. So it's an event where I honestly couldn't understand it during the film.
I was really confused by the trailer by the time period.
Yeah, but it's a conflict between Protestants and Catholics.
Oh, well, that's neat.
Yeah, I mean, but I still left the film and I was like, okay, I feel like I should have done my research before I walked in here. It's still a very wonderful and soft and enjoyable film, but it's also not my pick.
I've seen this before. This is not something...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, I see why Kenneth Branagh wanted to talk about this, but no. I do think that Best Actress is in the can. I think it's either Kristen Stewart or Jessica Chastain for Eyes of Tammy Faye.
And Eyes of Tammy Faye got so bogged down by middling reviews that it seems that Kristen Stewart's going to run away with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, which, granted, while I wasn't the biggest fan of Eyes of Tammy Faye, I thought Jessica Chastain's performance in it and her giving her 110% to it was really cool. And thought she had a shot. Let's see. As far as Best Picture, though, I really don't know. I think it's up in the air if it's not Belfast. But I do think it'll end up being Belfast. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Best Picture films, but I know, I don't know. I heard recently someone saying A24 is trying to market Red Rocket as an awards film.
There's no shot.
There's no way.
No way.
Yeah, so it's the only thing I can think of in terms of awards film. But
I think that this would also be unsuccessful, but I think it'd be more interesting of them to market Green Knight as their Best Picture, because it was it's one of the most critically acclaimed of the year, and I think that it would just be an interesting genre pick, considering that the Academy is trying to capture those genre interests. I also really want to see Nicolas Cage nominated for Pig, because I think that he was
Yes.
phenomenal in that, and I think that he should be at least nominated if he isn't awarded. But I thought he was fantastic in that.
I don't see it happening only because every time Nick Cage does something crazy, right, like with Mandy, right, he does not get nominated. They don't like Nick Cage for whatever reason. And the Oscars are cyclical, right? Like they will absolutely nominate the same people if they're in movies this year, right?
Yeah.
I don't see them diverging from that too much.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix has a guaranteed nomination for Come On, Come On. I mean, I didn't get to catch it, but he's Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
And he's been nominated for Joker and Her and...
But he won.
The Master, was he
won.
nominated
He won
for The
for
Master?
Joker.
Maybe
I'm
not.
100% sure. I don't...
Maybe not.
For her?
For The Master.
I
Yeah.
don't remember.
I mean, I think, well, what? Cumberbatch will be nominated for Power of the
I
Dog.
think he'll win that.
I would actually agree. I think that he is a strong front runner to win that. I think that, God, who else? I think DiCaprio will be nominated probably for Adam McKay's next film, Don't Look Up, just because by virtue of him being Leonardo DiCaprio. And yeah, I would just think that Cumberbatch runs away with it, just by virtue of it being a more, not stereotypical, but just more of something up the Academy's line of appreciation.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that could very much hinder Cumberbatch's play for Best Actor. I don't know, I hate to spoil this for you, but it's not like a huge plot point. Cumberbatch is playing an LGBTQ character in Power of the Dog. So I think that, well, I guess the Academy's all white men. So, like, you know, I don't think that accurate representation of diversity is going to hurt his chances. So, take back my comment.
Yeah, well, like one movie I'm thinking about, I don't know if it's gonna change anything, but like Lucario Plaza, like the new Paul
Licorice
Thomas.
Pizza.
Oh, Licorice Pizza.
Yes, yeah, Licorice Pizza. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna change anything, but I know that's coming out next month, so I don't know if I would.
This month, yeah.
I mean, it
This
seems to
one,
be
yeah.
like kind of like an ensemble picture, something similar to Boogie Nights and Magnolia that he's done.
Yeah.
And I feel as though, just like a personal hunch, I think it's going to be like my runaway favorite of the year. I don't think it'll be something that will win, but I think, or maybe not even get like full awards consideration, because PTA usually is kind of underappreciated. But I think that is something that I'm highly anticipating. It's probably going to be awesome, like pretty much everything else he does.
Yeah. No, I...
But I would like to talk about, since to step away from the Oscars, stuff that had no chance of winning and is going to be in conversation, but is really good in and of itself. And I'll start with Memoria, which is something that I saw, and people were kind of befuddled by it when walking out of the theater, but I strangely liked. Usually I'm not super into films like that. And I actually would like to advocate and plug in the theater experience for this, because if I saw this at home, there'd be no way I would be able to restrain myself and discipline myself to sit down and watch this film. And because I was, in the dark, couldn't do anything, was in the theater, I just kind of absorbed it and really appreciated it in a way that some others may have not. And I just thought it was very slow-paced, but also deliberate in what it was trying to say. And I thought that some of the scenes and the long takes in, I mean, Tilda Swinton is naturally incredible, but even Hernan, who, the second Hernan, who she talks to near the end of the film, were just incredible in his performance. I just thought that, like, it left a lot on the table, but it seemed like David Lynch, very controlled in what it was trying to leave on the table, and the puzzles of it were just planned from the beginning. It wasn't spitballing and randomly throwing shit at you. Possibly the ending, which I see some people, I can definitely see their complaints with it, because it's essentially the same ending as The Dead Don't Die, if you've seen that film. And yet it feels a lot more natural to me, and I hate The Dead Don't Die, but I really like this one. And so it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on Memoria.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. So.
Yeah. So, for me, I think I really would have enjoyed Memoria a lot more had I not gotten bogged down looking for meaning. I think, I was like, well, what is this about? And got really lost in that. And then by the time I figured it out, the movie was over. I do fully agree with you for the theatrical experience, and I think that's why they're doing this ridiculous theatrical release model where it's only playing in one theater at one time in any certain place, which is ridiculous. But also, Sure, why not? It's a cool legacy for the film to have. I will say I did like the stylistic choices and the slow burn of it. And, I think going home and doing, listening to Apricia Prong and Tilda Swinton talk about it, I watched a video of them talking about it at New York Film Festival. And they were talking about how it's, an environmentalist film, but also a reflection on collective trauma and, life. And I mean, I being able to reflect on the film after hearing them talk about it improved my, I think I even improved my rating on Letterboxd.
And it was just like, I was particularly dazzled at that, like, its meaning changes over the film. Like, I feel like early on it was just like an experimentation in sound design, because they're actually in a room like we are right now, and like an audio recording station, and there's like a 5-minute scene where they're just listening to noises and trying to replicate the sound she had. And then she goes into finding stuff, in about, colonialism and stuff, and she's looking into old bones, and then she's, just trying to, help herself. And there's the random dog that she's following, and that follows it, and then she's trying to get a refrigerator, and it's so many abstract ideas that again, like at any other time in my life, in any other situation, I wouldn't feel came together. But in this particular circumstance, I felt like I was really appreciative to see this at a film festival, which brings me to my next point, which is Worst Person in the World, which I also felt was really unique at a film festival. Memoria, by the way, I gave that a 4 out of 5, and so that was my favorite of the festival. Worst Person, I gave a very high 3.5 out of 5, but I similarly liked it a lot and thought it was very unique, and something that I would only see at a film festival.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of my favorite things, I saw Worst Person, I've seen Worst Person in the World twice now. And it's just it's not a lot of fun, but it's like a lot of fun in that it's a very much a slice of life film. It feels, the world feels lived in. It feels like, I mean, it was interesting seeing this as a college student who's about to graduate in, 4 or 5 months, because it's following this woman in her late 20s as she's got this crisis of identity, and she's really struggling to figure out what she wants to do with her life, and I know I've definitely had that at least once, or at least 2 or 3 times in my college career. So I mean, it was very nice in that respect, and yeah. I also, side note, I think it's really crazy how Neon Rated is going to dominate Best International Feature this year with their distribution of Titan, Worst Person in the World, Flea, who am I forgetting? I think they might have distributed Drive My Car.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, they are racking it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I similarly really liked it. My friends really loved it. And I'll start with the positives first, because I did like it, and I would like to make that clear. I mean, I thought Julie was a particularly compelling main protagonist. I thought the actress who played her was great. I thought that I know I'm not going to say that about the chapters, but I thought that it really kicked up into third gear once she had her first breakup. I'll say, for the negative sides, you said it was like very fun, but also not very fun. It did seem as though it was trying to be all things to all people at some points. I think David Ehrlich called this like Frances Ha again, but I feel like Frances Ha was a lot more singular, but that made it better because it wasn't as all over the place. And the chapter format kind of had like, one chapter is hilarious, and one chapter they're getting high and it's hallucinations, and in one chapter she freezes time, which was particularly cliched and that I didn't really like. But then the chapters where it really takes itself seriously and goes into, the breakups and the pangs and the highs and lows of love, I thought were particularly effective. And by the end of the film, I was really behind it and just overall enjoyed it, even though I thought it was a bit all over the place at times.
And yeah, I this will be the last thing I say on it probably, but I think that's something I liked about the film, because it's, life is not monotonous. It's highs and lows, and, one night you are, or, one day you're breaking up with, your significant other, and then the next day you are moving in with a new significant other.
And then
I
you're
don't know.
sniffing his armpits. And
Yeah,
not
exactly.
cheating on him.
Exactly, right? So,
Particularly odd moment in the film that, got the
but
job done.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
I mean, But, yeah. No, I mean, I think that, well, I can understand, like, your gripe with it. Or not even your gripe, but, like, you saying it's all over the place. I think that, for me at least, that really played into its strengths there.
Yeah, people were particularly enthusiastic when we walked out. And of all the films I saw, that was definitely the one where people were the most energized about, wow, this is so something I wouldn't see anyplace else, which I really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And then of Ruin, I'd like to talk about one more film that you either saw at the festival or saw in another festival that was playing, and then we'll wrap it up afterwards. But I'd like to at least get you in one more time, and we can talk about one more film.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Have you seen Red Rocket?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
I've not, but please.
Okay, I talked about Red Rocket. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It was like 60 millimeters, so that was cool. But like, yeah, I'm really interested in film stock. But I think like the cool part about that was like, it didn't really feel like there was an arc to that movie, but kind of just felt like it just happened. Like they kind of just put the camera there and they just kind of let the story unfold. And I think that's something you just see a lot in Sean Baker. Like he just kind of just does that with his films. So I think that was one unique part about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me because I'm not particularly a fan of Sean Baker. I respect his style. I just don't really vibe with his films. Again, I think they're very well made. But yeah, I think this film, I think it suffers because the main character is just so incredibly despicable. And I mean, while Simon Rex does a fantastic job, I was just kind of like, okay, am I supposed to be rooting for him? He's like hitting on like a 17-year-old girl, and he's like a fading porn star. Like, where am I supposed to lie? Like, I mean, it was funny kind of, but also I felt like by the end I was looking at my watch like, is this over? Granted, I will give it the benefit of the doubt. It was the 5th film I had seen that day. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you were saying, Cameron. It's hard to root for a character when you don't really like them that much. Like, when they're kind of like, it's hard to root for them because they're like kind of doing things that are out there. So yeah, I thought at parts it was a little bit weird that he was doing that, but I don't know. At the end, like, I wasn't sure because people were supposed to cheer for him at the end, like when he's kind of like leaves to go like with the girl that he like I guess likes. So that was something I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I'll just say just an interesting point that you guys are bringing up. I mean, considering like the likability of him, it's just always a hard balance when you're crafting someone like an anti-hero and is trying to balance what you like and what you don't like. I always thought Scorsese was particularly effective of making people that are greedy and violent and making them into people that we sympathize with. But I mean, the plot of the film, it's incredibly challenging if you guys are familiar with the film Happiness, which is also about, kind of, I don't know, not particularly taking sides with, but has as one of its protagonists a pedophile. And it's just, it's always something that's difficult to maintain that balance. When you're doing something as sensitive as, underaged girls and anything similar to that and those kinds of relationships, especially something like Woody Allen, which has come up so many times over the past decade, and the morality of liking something by him or even Kevin Spacey in American Beauty, it's a very dense conversation that has a lot of problems no matter if you're writing, if people really like the film or not.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there needs to be a separation there, but I mean, Sean Baker doesn't even make any attempt to make him an anti-hero, in the traditional sense of an anti-hero, because I feel like nothing that Simon Rex's character's name's Mikey Saber, nothing he does in the film is, I can't root for anything, He comes back, he uses all the people in his life, he cheats on, he gets back together with his ex-wife and cheats on her. He tries to sleep with this 17-year-old girl he meets at a donut shop, and sorry, I'm spoiling the whole movie. There's not much to spoil.
A lot of this isn't plot synopsis, though.
Yeah,
I will
true.
say. So
but
I mean,
he's like trying to lure her into the porn industry to like get back because he's pretty much been kicked out. He's selling weed, which no shame there, but like also he's like kind of. I feel like he even there he's like kind of portrayed to be like scamming his, distributor. So I mean it just felt very. I was like, there was never a point like it gets to the point. Oh, actually, I'm not going to spoil that because that's possibly my favorite point in the movie. But yeah, no, I mean I just was like. Okay.
just a laundry list of horrible things that I don't like, that I don't approve.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, that film just happened. Like,
Yeah.
it was fine.
I think, Matt.
It's funny you bring this up, and I don't know why this comes to mind, but a character that has like similar problems, right, is like a super problematic character when you break it down, but works so well, is Seth Rogen's character from Pineapple Express, right? Who's also dating a high schooler, right? And is also like buying a lot of weed, right, from somebody who's like kind of scamming him, right? Which makes him more of a victim in this scenario, right? And it's that easy, right?
Yeah.
It's that easy to flip that. And I find it so interesting that in this case, it feels like they want to make him as unlikable as possible without like pushing too hard, I guess. But from what you're saying, it sounds like
It
they did
definitely
push
pushed too hard
Like
in
they
your
pushed,
perspective.
they pushed past that border. So I'm curious like where that line could have been drawn in making this movie, where it's like, okay, well, this guy's a piece of shit, but like, is he redeemable? Is there something he
Right.
could do that like he's not the worst guy?
I mean, I will say something that this like reminds me of very starkly. I finally was able to remember it. Was Dead Man Walking, and this is a film that Susan Sarandon and Sean Penn, and he rapes and kills two girls, and it's a film that's supposed to make you think about the criminal justice system, and it doesn't have an agenda really. It just wants to make you think about crime and punishment. Does the state have the right to take a human life? The problem is that Sean Penn is not only rapes and kills people, but is awful to everyone. To everyone he's trying to help. He is also racist. He also has the worst views ever, just on everything. He persistently looks to take down a religion that's trying to help him, has horrible misogynistic views on everything that talks about, and also rapes and kills two people. And so that video, someone just texted me about a video. That film made me more, think about, this guy really needs to die. Like the first scene where they were talking about like this family had to wait months and months for this trial. I was like, this man needs to die and they deserve their justice. And the film defeated its own purpose and just made me more assured that the state does in fact have a right to take someone's life. And that's the exact opposite of the film. And yet you show someone so unlikable that it only reinforces a bias that you didn't want to perpetuate, that you wanted to weaken on both sides. And I think that is a balance that Red Rocket also didn't really navigate to the best extent.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a lot of growth in the character.
No, he was very much a static character.
Yeah.
There was no change from beginning to end unless it went down in a completely just downward slant.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll just say, I'll close it off here, but just to call out Barry Lyndon and really just like the same sort of idea of like this person just making worse and worse decisions every time, but me still being interested in him and not like totally seeing him want to die because he's also a good father. And I think that that's just a model of something where it was pretty effective. You're making this character despicable and really unlikable, but also having redeeming stuff. But
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that, but it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining me and talking about the Virginia Film Festival. But thank you so much.
Thank you.